All right, welcome to tonight's Tanya class. We are learning Igeret Hakodesh, which is the fourth section in Tanya. As we finished Likutei Amarim, we finished Shari Chedmuna, we finished Igeret HaTshuva. We're holding the fourth section of Tanya called Igeret HaKodesh, Holy Letters, and we are holding Igeret Beis, the second letter, Perek Beis, the second chapter. Okay, as I always say, every chapter in Tanya is very, very powerful because this is the foundation of mysticism, so every chapter is really, really strong. Tonight's chapter happens to be, I think, again, every chapter is great, and everyone is the most important one, but really, tonight happens to be, I think, the most important chapter in Tanya that you're going to learn tonight. And the reason is because the Alter Rebbe really gives you tonight in chapter Beis, Perek Beis, he gives you real power. Real power. Not fake power, real power. And he deals with the issue very, very simple. How do you respond to someone that hurt you? Right? This is serious stuff. This is not... I came tonight. Exactly. This is not philosophy. I mean, it's philosophy too. And it's godly and everything, but this is down to day-to-day life. Someone insults you. Someone says something not nice to you, about you. Someone hurts you. Someone gets you into trouble. Someone is gossiping about you. Someone literally damages you and your property. Right? How should you deal with it?
Forgive them.
Well, let's see what the Alter Rebbe says.
Okay.
How should you deal with it? What's the Torah opinion? What's the godly opinion? How should you deal with that? So what's interesting is, again, this is very, very rare. Twice in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe does this, but what's unique over here is the Alter Rebbe starts, before he even lists the chapter that we're dealing with, chapter 2, Perek Beis, and he writes in small letters that this chapter was written, and I'll say it in Hebrew and I'll translate, Achar biyosei mi Petersburg, after he came back from St. Petersburg. I know a lot of people like going on cruises to St. Petersburg, to Russia, right? But after the Alter Rebbe went to St. Petersburg, now he didn't go there to visit the fancy palaces. Not the winter one, not the summer one. Unfortunately, he went to St. Petersburg, and I was there. He was actually sent to prison there. In St. Petersburg, there's on the water, there's like an island. And on the island, on the water, there's a prison there. And I actually went there, and they still have, like a museum of the prison. There's actually a picture of the Alter Rebbe there. Someone made a nice picture. But the Alter was sent to Petersburg to prison. The reason why he was taken to prison is a famous story when he went to do the Kiddush Levana. We'll leave it for another time. But he went to prison there, and the reason why he went to prison was because other Jews went ahead and tattled and snitched and made up stories to the government. And the Alter went to prison ultimately for spreading and teaching Kabbalah and mysticism. But unfortunately, the saddest part was it was all incited by other Jews out of hate, envy, jealousy. I mean, it could be many reasons. So this chapter the Alter is writing is Achar biyosei. This is after he's coming back from St. Petersburg, after he's coming back from prison, and now he's back. He's out. He's free. So this is actually a whole new era. Because till now, the Alter was great. He's teaching and he's inspiring people, etc. But here he was put through a personal test and a communal test. In other words, the personal test was people attacked him personally. He himself ended up in prison. And then, more importantly, it was a test against the whole mysticism. Because the reason why he was sent to prison, we believe, is very simple, because Alter was teaching Kabbalah and mysticism, which is a tremendous treasure that was never shared. And in heaven, they were not so happy that he was teaching and revealing all the secrets of the Torah. So he said, all right, time to go to prison. And in spiritual court, there was a whole war. Do we keep him in prison so he doesn't keep on teaching Kabbalah and mysticism, or do we let him out? And obviously the verdict was he was freed. That means he can continue on teaching. So here started a whole new chapter in the Alter Rebbe's life. And it's interesting is because the first chapter was Aleph. We know Aleph is 1. And after he came back, now starts Beis, which means a whole new chapter. From before prison to after prison. So you have to realize, again, the Alter is coming back now from prison. I want you to get the perspective. Meditate for a moment. You had all these people that went ahead, got him in trouble, tattled on him, and he ended up going to prison. It's not like even today's prison. Today's prisons are probably like a resort compared to those prisons. Those were serious lockdowns. Serious lockdowns. So here he was in prison, and now he's coming back from prison.
He in?
1 second. Here he is in prison, and now he's coming out from prison. So what's the first initial reaction? The human reaction is, we won, and those guys are now going to pay up, because look what they did. Now, while you're in prison, you're so busy dealing with the fact that he's in prison, but now that he's out, he's freed, and the Alter Rebbe sensed this. And that's when he wrote this letter, a very powerful letter, which applies then and applies today. And the Alter Rebbe starts off by quoting a famous verse in the Torah, where Jacob says to God, and I'll quote and I'll translate it, "Katointi mikoil hachasadim." God was very kind to me. Chesed is kindness. God was very, very kind to me. And because God was very, very kind to me, guess what? I became very, very small. What does that mean practically? When God was so good to me and so kind to me, so guess what? I probably used up all my credits. I have no credits left. So if I have no credits left, God is very good to me. Chesed, right? God has given me everything I want. And now I'm in trouble, so katainti. I don't know if I have enough money to put in the meter to get myself to get out of jail card free. In other words, Yaakov is saying is katainti mikol chasadim. So what does that mean practically? So the Alter Rebbe explains, what does that mean? What does that mean on a spiritual level that that you became small? So God was good to you. God is good to everybody. Why should you become small because of it? So the Alter Rebbe says very simple, because when Hashem provides you with chesed, what is that supposed to do to you? You can become arrogant. Oh, I'm this great guy. Look at all these great things Hashem has done for me and does for me. Or what does the Alter Rebbe say? What does Yaakov Avinu say? Yaakov says, "Katainti, I'm humble. True, Hashem gives me life, and He gives me health, and He gives me family, and He gives me opportunity to do mitzvot and to study Torah, but guess what? I'm not going to put my nose up. I am going to be a humble human being." Now the question is, why is that? Why is that so? I mean, it's a nice thought, and it makes sense, but the Alter Rebbe is going to take us down to a spiritual journey to realize why is that you should really become humble. And he explains as follows. Because we know that there's chesed, and if you notice I'm using the right hand, and there's gvura, right? So chesed is the right hand. Gvura is the left hand. What does the right hand resemble? The right hand resembles love, warmth, inclusive. The right hand, when you hug someone, you usually do it with the right hand. If you're hugging someone with the left hand, there's something wrong with that hug. It's not like a real hug. I mean, you can do both hands, but a real hug is always with chesed first. You're bringing them in, right? The left one pushes away and the right brings in. So if you're hugging someone like this, what kind of hug is that? That's not a real hug, that's pushing them away. That's throwing them away. Chesed, the right hand brings in, right? The right hand brings in and the left one pushes away. So in other words, like this. So Hashem, every time He provides chesed, He's using what? His right hand. And He's giving. Now what happens if you have something? Imagine in your mind you have something, whatever it may be, you have something, and you like somebody, and you go ahead and give them something that you have. So let's say, for example, you have 100, it could be anything, 100 apples, right? 100 bars of chocolate, $100, whatever we're using, whatever we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And you go ahead and you give somebody 10 of them. Apples, oranges, right? Chocolate, money, whatever you give them. Now, if you go ahead and you count, after you gave away, what do you have? If you had 100 before and you gave away 10, what do you have left? You have 90. And let's say you give away another 10, now you have 80, right? So what happens when you give on a physical level, what happens? You have less. Now, let's take it on a spiritual level. You're full of love, life is good, life is great, you're happy, and you see someone and you give them a hug, right? And you give them warmth, and you spend time to listen to them and to care for them. So now, the time that you had, which was yours, 24 hours a day was yours, 7 days a week, and you gave away somebody now, you spent an hour with somebody. So you had 24 hours which is yours, you can do whatever you want. But you, instead of doing something for yourself, you sat down for an hour and you just listened to somebody. You were there for somebody else. So how many hours of the day do you have left for yourself? 23. You gave away 1 hour. So the point is that any time you are doing something for somebody else, what are you doing? You're giving away from yourself.
There's no loss.
You're giving away someone else. That's already commentary. You're jumping to commentary.
Oh.
Now, so anytime there's a chesed activity taking place, you're giving from yourself. Now, what is that called in Hebrew, in Kabbalistic terminology? In order to give, to go even deeper, in order to give, a person has to practice something which is called in Hebrew, and I'll translate tzimtzum. You have to contract yourself. In other words, you're giving away of yourself, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's energy. Anytime you're doing for somebody else, you're taking away from yourself. Doesn't mean you're becoming less, but you're taking away from yourself. That's the technical reality. Now, so what happens when Hashem is providing us chesed? What is happening to Hashem on a certain level? Hashem is becoming less, so to speak. God is infinite. Hashem, but the point is, he's giving away from himself. First he had it in his backyard, and now it's in your backyard. So his backyard has less things, whatever he had there before. Right? So what is Hashem doing? He's contracting himself. Now, there's another rule in mysticism that says like this. Kamayim haponim al ponim, kain leva adam al adam. What does that mean? That when you look in the water, which is referring to like a mirror, when you look into a mirror, right? Because you look in the water, you see yourself. So what do you see when you look in the mirror? The same exact face that you put in the mirror, that's what you get back. So if you're standing in front of a mirror and you say, oh my gosh, I see this mean person in front of me, guess what? Why are you showing a mean face? But if you're standing in front of the mirror and you say, oh my gosh, this beautiful, happy person, that's because that's what you put in. Whatever you put in, that's what you get out. Life is very, very simple. Kamayim haponim al ponim, whatever face you show in the mirror, that's what you're going to get back. So if you show a grateful, happy, appreciative, thankful, loving, warm, kind, generous, etc. face, that's what you're going to get back. Now, and that's a natural thing. So what happens is, just like it works in the mirror, it works with two people. If you walk over to someone and say, hey, how are you? How are you doing? What's the person going to tell you back naturally? Hey, how are you? How are you doing? I don't want to go to the negative, but if you, God forbid, go do something negative, you can imagine to somebody, what's the reaction? You're going to get the same thing back. Now, so therefore, what does the Alter Rebbe say? Let's look at this. What is Yaakov saying? The Alter Rebbe is explaining what Yaakov is saying. God was good to me. What does it mean he was good to me? God contracted himself. It means it was less of God because he was good to me. So if God was able to be mitzam to himself, if God was able to constrict himself in order that I should have, and since we know the rule is, what you see, the face you see in the mirror, that's what you get back, how should I be now?
Constrict yourself.
Constrict myself also. Hold yourself back. In other words, so if God is restricting, and he's restricting himself so that I can be more of me, and he can be able to be there for me. So what's my reaction should be? I will naturally follow what God is doing.
Okay.
And I'm going to hold back from expressing myself. Now, let's go a step further. God gives us how much? Everything we have, it comes from God. So God is constantly giving us. So the more we realize how much God is giving us, that means he's constricting himself so that we can be, the more we need to constrict ourselves. As we constrict ourselves more, guess what? We become less and less. So based on this, the Alter Rebbe says, what does Yaakov Avinu say? Katointi mikol achsadim. I'm becoming smaller because the more I think about all the good gifts that God is giving me, I'm becoming less and less. Now, that's who? Jacob, right? Then the Alter brings from another one of our great patriarchs. Who's another one of our great patriarchs in the Torah? Huh?
Isaac.
Yeah.
Isaac, who else?
Abraham, Isaac.
Abraham, there you go. Yaakov, we just spoke about Yaakov. Yeah. Let's look at Abraham. What was Abraham's famous line? What was Abraham's famous line? Anoichi, I am, who can finish it? Offer the Afer.
I am that I am.
No, I am dust and ashes.
Oh,
Dust and ashes. What does it mean, I am dust and ashes? In other words, what is the most humble thing in this world? Not humans,
Water.
not animals, not water, not trees.
dirt.
Dirt and ashes. So Abraham, who we know had a relationship with God, he searched out God, became buddies with God, right?
Yeah.
And what does Abraham say? With all my great connections, not in Washington, but straight in heaven, right? With all my greatest connections with God, Anoichi, you know who I am? Dust and ashes. And the question is, what does that mean? What does that mean, I'm dust and ashes? I'm Abraham. I'm buddies with God. I study Torah. I do mitzvot. I pray. I'm a somebody. I'm right. I'm huge. It doesn't say that. After all said and done, what does he say? I am dust and ashes. Why? And the Alter Rebbe explains very simple. Because it was just like Jacob. In other words, just like Jacob said, I am small because all the chesed, the same thing also. Because God is so good to me, and because I have this great relationship with God, I am dust and ashes. So who are our mentors? Our mentors is Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, but Abraham and Jacob, in these two cases, they all said, we're nobody. We're nothing. Now, Abraham had how many sons? I didn't say Sarah. Abraham had how many sons? Not a sure question. How many sons? 2. Exactly. What were the names?
Isaac.
Isaac and Yishmoel. Very good. Yitzchok and Yishmoel. So Yitzchok and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. That's our patriarchs. Abraham's first son was who? Yishmoel. Now Yishmoel resembles Klippa. Abraham's from the holy side, and Yishmoel's from Klippa, and he went off doing what he does. Yishmoel, the way it works, just the opposite. Yishmoel says, the more God gives me,
The more I want.
the bigger I am and the more I want. Exactly. So in other words, by Yishmoel, just the opposite. By Yishmoel, the more God gives me, the greater I am, the more arrogant I am, the more I want, and then I become bigger and bigger. Now, is that the Jewish way? No, that's the Ishmaelites' way.
Islam.
Egyptian.
That's Islam.
However, that's already.
I'm just saying.
I got it. No problem. I got it. Okay. Okay. So now, what happens if you're going through a tough time and you're basically from the Yishmael side? God, where are you? You got to take care of me,
Yeah,
right?
Give to me.
I'm a great guy. You got to give to me. What does Yaakov say? Uh-oh, maybe I used up all my credits. Right? Now, I can come along and I can say to God, God, but you promised me, that's all if I didn't take any credits from God. But I used up all my credits. God doesn't owe me anything. Whole different reality. So now, with this introduction, comes along the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe says, guess what? Look what happened to us. The Alter Rebbe as an individual, and as the head of the Chabad Chassidim, look what happened to us. People tried to hurt us, ended up in prison, and in Russia, you go to prison, you don't necessarily come out alive, and that was an option, possibly, God forbid. And not only was I not killed, not only wasn't it a life sentence, not only wasn't it a long sentence, boom, I came out relatively very quick. I mean, even a second, a person shouldn't be in prison. So that's what I'm saying, relatively pretty quick. Because even a second, for a Jew, is hundreds of years. Because a Jew belongs to be a free person, only a slave to God, not a slave to any walls or any governments, etc. Now, so comes along, the Alter Rebbe says, look how good God was to me. God was great to us. He freed me from prison. And not only that, but now he gave me the green light that now we can teach Kabbalah and mysticism freely. With the stamp of God from heaven. Can you imagine if the stamp from God to heaven to teach mysticism? Abraham got it. The Alter Rebbe got it. So the Alter Rebbe said, guess what? We just like, it's almost like we won the spiritual lottery. Right? We won the lottery.
Yeah.
So should we be dancing and screaming, right? On a spiritual for sure. But he said, the Alter says, we have to learn from Jacob and from Abraham to be humble and extremely humble for all the greatness that God did to us. Now, so you're going to say to yourself, hold on a second. All these people, look what they did to us. They harmed us. They tried to, at least. The Alter says, no. Do not say a word to them. Not a word. Do not say a word to them. And not say a word to them. Not only that, the Alter quotes and he says like this, that what happens is, and it's a fascinating practical tip the Alter says, what happens when someone's angry? Someone's screaming out of anger. So the Alter says like this, that what's your goal? You want to help the person. You want to help the person. Yeah. So when someone's angry, that's like almost like, a fire. Now what happens if you have a fire and you pour kerosene on the fire? What happens to the fire?
Flares up.
It flares up. So if someone's angry and upset, and you respond back in anger, what happens? You're creating a bonfire. Like Bowman was last week. You're creating a bonfire. So the Alter gives a tip. Your goal is to diffuse the anger. The way to diffuse the anger is very simple. Answer softly. Don't ignore, because the person will get even more upset. You're ignoring me. And obviously not in the heat of the moment, but when you're ready to answer, when you're ready and it's appropriate to answer very, very softly. Because what happens when you answer softly, that will diffuse the anger. Now, so in other words, the Alter Rebbe warns his chassidim, do not, and he says, God forbid, to say anything, to engage in any negativity, and to even think that they did it 100%, totally. Don't engage in any war or fighting, or saying, hey, we won and you lost. Don't do that. Because we won because God was good to us, and we have to become more humble. And being more humble means not, God forbid, standing up to someone else, speaking and talking not nicely to somebody else. Totally against everything. And here the Alter Rebbe throws in such a beautiful idea, and he says like this. The fact is, to do this takes a lot of strength, and real strength. Real strength is by not engaging in negativity. And you become a stronger person. And here's the Alter throws in something so beautifully at the end. He says like this, that when a person behaves in a godly way, that means, even though you might be angry, and even though you might be upset, but you're going to, no. It's not even though. You're not upset, you're not angry, because you realize God runs the world, God was great to me, and I'm going to be humble. You know what happens, Alter Rebbe says? What did we say before? What's the mystical rule? That when you stand in front of a mirror, what's the face that you see in the mirror? Exactly what you put in. So now, when you're dealing with someone that hurt you, and you're really not, you have nothing against that person. Why? Because what does that person have to do with it? Yeah. God runs the world. God is great to me, and I'm grateful to God. And therefore, I'm not saying I have no issue against anybody. You know what happens to that person that was angry, and the person that got you into trouble, and the person that hurt you and said terrible things? They will reflect of your attitude, and they will change their attitude as well. And they will become good, kind, normal, loving, caring, happy people. So, in other words, to answer the big question in this chapter, what is the Alter Rebbe telling us? How should you treat someone that hurt you? The Alter Rebbe says very simple. Be nice to everybody. And kindly. And not only that, but if you're kind to them, you know what will happen? They will respond in kindness to you, and more importantly, you'll make the world a beautiful place. And that's why I think this chapter in Tanya, it's a short chapter, it's one page, is so powerful. Because it really puts power into us to realize that nobody can affect you in a negative way. Nobody. And if you really think someone's affecting you, go back to study this chapter in Tanya. Nobody can affect you. And God forbid if something happens to you, turn to God. Not out of arrogance where God owes it to you, because God owes you nothing. God's so good to us. But really to be truly humble. And when you're really humble, you turn to God to help you. Guess what? He'll help you. And if you don't have any animosity or anger towards anyone else, guess what will happen? the other person becomes kind. Such a powerful chapter in Tanya. Chapter 2, Igeret Hakodesh of Tanya, about treating everyone beautifully and accepting that everything comes from God. Thank you.
That's
Thank you,
really,
Rabbi.
that works, Rabbi, because